Do you find yourself overspending or wanting to save more? In this video, I will cover a few money-saving strategies to reduce overspending that I personally use. Make sure to stick around for the last strategy. It's been the most impactful for me and takes a little longer to explain, so I've saved it for the end. Of course, feel free to skip around if you're already familiar with some of these ideas. Tip number 1 is my subscription strategy. These days, almost everything requires a subscription. And it's easy to lose track. Sometimes we sign up, forget about it, and end up paying for subscriptions we're not even using. Here's how I manage mine to avoid those unnecessary charges. As soon as I subscribe to something, I immediately unsubscribe. The majority of apps or platforms will still let you use the service for the rest of the month you've paid for, or even through the free trial period. By unsubscribing immediately, if I stop using it or forget about the subscription, it doesn't matter because I've already unsubscribed. This simple strategy has saved me a lot of money. Tip number 2. Be cautious with this strategy I'm about to share and avoid taking on any unnecessary debt. I personally hate paying for interest. It feels like throwing money away. The idea of handing over $50 every month for nothing just seems ridiculous to me. That's why I always make sure to pay off my credit cards in full every month. However, I once found myself in financial trouble with credit card debt that I couldn't immediately pay off. And here's how I avoided paying interest on it. I applied for a new credit card with 0% APR, which is 0% interest for 15 months, including for what I wanted to do, which was to transfer my balance. So I moved my debt over to this new card, which gave me 15 months to pay down the debt, interest-free. Also, keep in mind that balance transfers usually come with a fee, typically around 4% of the balance. In my case, the fee was $160 for my $4,000 transfer. However, I found a card offering $200 cashback if I spent $1,000 within 3 months. I earned the $200 cashback, covering the transfer fee. So also look for a card that offers cashback. I've used this strategy twice to reduce debt without paying interest, but I can't stress this enough. Only use this as a tool to pay off existing debt, not to take on more. Tip number 3, which I'll cover briefly, is one of the most important tips. Pay yourself first. Before you give Target or Amazon your money, pay yourself. Get in the habit of paying yourself first. Treat it like any other essential bill you have to pay. Rent, utilities, car, meat. Add yourself to that list. Deposit that money into a savings or investment account. Have it automatically withdrawn like all your other bills. Tip number 4. You have to know where your money is going, and I've got an easy way to help you organize it. Similar to Dave Ramsey's envelope system, but with checking accounts and credit cards. Let me explain. I have 5 different cards. Checking account number 1 is where my income is deposited, and that's essentially the only use for this account. This helps me keep track of exactly how much is coming in, giving me better control and awareness of my financial situation. I don't have any automatic payments or withdrawals linked to this account, because again, I want to maintain control over it. At the end of each month, I manually transfer money from this account to the corresponding accounts. There are no automatic setups here. Everything is done manually. This strategy will make more sense once I explain the next cards. Checking account number 2 is where all my basic living costs are automatically deducted. Things like the mortgage, gas bill, electricity, internet, phone bills, etc. These are expenses I'll likely need to pay for the rest of my life. I ensure that at the end of each month, I deposit the average amount for these bills into this account. For example, if I know that the average for these bills is $2,000 monthly, I'll transfer $2,100 at the end of each month. I always like to add a little extra as a buffer to avoid overdrafts. These bills are usually consistent and about the same each month. If you're unsure of the total amount of your basic living expenses, start moving all your payments and having everything withdrawn from this one checking checking account. After a few months, you'll have a clearer idea of your average monthly costs. The benefit of this method is easy to spot if any bills are higher than usual and address it right away. Most importantly, it keeps you mentally aware of exactly how much you're spending on your bills each month, which then allows you to analyze and assess how to reduce it if need be. Now moving on to credit cards. Credit card number 1. I use this card exclusively for anything related to my car. Gas, tires, mechanical work, you name it. The main reason I use this card is to keep track of my monthly gas expenses, but it also helps me stay organized with any car related costs. The next credit card I use is for food only, whether it's groceries, dining out, or even just coffee. All food related purchases go on this card. At the grocery store, I divide my food and household items into 2 sections on the conveyor belt or at the self-checkout and pay for them separately. The key here is to track exactly how much you're spending on food. You can organize your card usage however works best for you. Maybe you prefer to use it for dining out only. The advantage of using a specific card for food is that it makes you more aware of how much you are spending on food, and you can work to decrease that amount if you think you're overspending. For example, if you notice you've spent a lot more one month compared to others, you can scroll through that one card and see what happened. Maybe you stopped at Starbucks a little too much that month. Maybe you ate out more than usual that month. By noticing those patterns, you can adjust your spending and make better choices next month. The last credit card I use is for everything else, which I call the other card. For me, this card covers things like Amazon purchases, clothes, shoes, jewelry, gifts, basically anything that's not essential. In my opinion, this is the most important card to keep track of. The other cards I've mentioned are necessities, bills, food, gas, but this one is quite the opposite. It's mostly for wants, and if you're anything like me, the balance on this card can get pretty high. In fact, sometimes it even surpasses the balance on my gas and food cards. This is the card I pay the most attention to and try to cut back on the most, since again, it's mostly used for things I want, not things I actually need. The point is to divide your cards into different spending categories, making it super easy to track your spending, spot any differences from month to month, and make improvements or cutbacks where needed. Let me emphasize this. Even though I use several credit cards, I always make sure I pay them off completely at the end of each month. It's crucial to manage your cards correctly and avoid paying any interest. If you're not able to pay off your cards in full each month, then this strategy isn't for you. First, because you'll end up paying interest, which isn't really part of your bills, food, or gas. Second, the months will start overlapping and you'll end up with inaccurate data about how much you're actually spending monthly in each category. Of course, this is how I organize my accounts. Your expenditures might look a little different. Find what works for you. But the key first step is always knowing where your money is going. I'll be making a video once a month where I dive into my accounts, analyze the spending categories I've mentioned, and work on reducing the spending in each area. So make sure to subscribe and follow along. See you on the next one.